Right now, somewhere near you, there is probably a wolf sleeping on your couch. You call it a dog. It sleeps in your bed, eats out of a bowl you wash for it, and would, statistically, let a stranger walk right past it without doing anything useful at all. And you've probably never once stopped to ask how a descendant of an apex predator ended up like this. Because the honest answer is stranger than you think. It almost didn't happen. Twice, it failed completely. In 2008, a researcher named Mieti Germanprey was examining an old canine skull pulled from Goyette Cave in Belgium, sitting in a museum collection since the 1860s. When she got the radiocarbon date back, she didn't believe it. Nearly 36,000 years old. And the skull wasn't quite wolf. Shorter snout, wider brain case, broader palate, the exact anatomical signature of an animal already being shaped by life alongside humans. When I received the results of the date, I was really disappointed, she later said. I thought no one would believe it. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Modern dogs don't descend from the Goyette animal. Geneticists checked. That entire lineage, that entire 36,000-year-old relationship between a wolf-like creature and whatever humans it lived alongside simply ends. No descendants. Nothing carried forward into the world you live in. And it happened again. A second skull, found in Razboynice Cave deep in Siberia's Altai Mountains, dated to roughly 33,000 years old, shows the same dog-like shift, same story, same dead end. Two separate attempts, two separate populations of early humans, each one apparently building a relationship with wolves that looked exactly like the one you have with your own dog right now. And both times, it just stopped. Researchers now think a brutal climate shift called the last glacial maximum wiped both lineages out before they could take hold. So somewhere between one failed attempt and another, the question stops being how did humans domesticate wolves? It becomes something much stranger. What finally made the third attempt actually stick?
To answer that, you have to go to 1914, to a stone quarry outside Bonn, Germany, where workers accidentally cut into something they weren't looking for: two human skeletons, bones from a dog, and two carved objects made from antler and bone, clearly placed there on purpose. The grave was dusted, deliberately, with red hematite powder, a substance that doesn't naturally occur anywhere near that site. Someone brought it there specifically for this burial. For decades, everyone assumed the dog bones belonged to a single adult animal, buried alongside the two humans as some kind of grave good. Then, in 2018, a veterinarian and researcher named Luke Janssens went back through the remains with modern forensic tools and found something nobody had noticed. There weren't one set of dog bones in that grave, there were two. A mature dog and a second, much younger animal, dead at around 27 weeks old, barely more than a puppy. Janssens examined the puppy's teeth, and there, preserved in the enamel, was evidence of morbillivirus, canine distemper, a brutal, often fatal infection that causes fevers, seizures, and total physical collapse. Based on the pattern of damage, Janssens concluded this puppy had been sick, gravely sick, for 6 weeks or longer before it finally died. Which raises an obvious, uncomfortable question. A sick animal that can't hunt, can't work, can't do anything useful for 6 straight weeks is a liability in a hunter-gatherer world where every calorie matters. The rational move is to abandon it, or worse. Instead, someone kept that puppy alive for a month and a half. Someone fed it, kept it warm, nursed it through a disease with no medicine, no treatment, nothing except time and effort spent on an animal that gave absolutely nothing back. And when it finally died anyway, they didn't discard the body. They buried it deliberately next to 2 actual human beings, dusted in the same rare red powder used to honor the people beside it.
Here's where this stops being a story about pets and starts being a story about what makes something worth saving. Because 14,200 years ago, in that grave outside Bonn, somebody made a decision that had absolutely no logical survival benefit. A dying puppy produces nothing. It hunts nothing. It guards nothing. Every single hour spent caring for it was an hour and a mouthful of food taken away from something that might have actually helped the group survive that winter. And yet they did it anyway, for 6 weeks. Compare that to Goyette and Razboynice, the 2 earlier failed attempts. We don't know exactly what went wrong there, only that the relationship didn't survive whatever pressure came next, likely the brutal, sudden climate shift of the last glacial maximum, when temperatures collapsed and every extra mouth, animal or otherwise, became a threat to the group's survival. Maybe those early wolf companions got abandoned the moment things got hard. Maybe the bond wasn't strong enough yet to survive real cost. But something had changed by the time of the Bonn-Oberkassel burial. The relationship wasn't just useful anymore, tolerated because it helped with hunting or guarding camp. It had become something people were willing to pay for, even when the animal offered nothing measurable in return. That's not domestication in the practical sense everyone assumes. Practical domestication is easy to explain. The wolf helps you hunt, so you keep it around. This is different. This is an entire community choosing to absorb real cost, real risk, real lost calories to keep a dying puppy alive for no reason that shows up on a survival spreadsheet. Which means the actual turning point in the history of dogs wasn't a wolf becoming useful. It was a group of humans deciding an animal's life mattered enough to fight for, even when it made zero practical sense.
So why did this version take hold while the other two didn't? Nobody has a confirmed answer, but the genetic record adds one more twist that makes the picture even stranger. In 2026, researchers analyzing ancient DNA from sites across Europe and Turkey, including a 14,300-year-old jawbone from Goff's Cave in England and remains from Pınarbaşı in Turkey, pushed the earliest confirmed genetic evidence of domestic dogs back to roughly 15,800 years ago. And the pattern that emerged wasn't one single domestication event spreading outward from one place. It looked like multiple regions, multiple human populations, independently arriving at the same relationship with wolves around the same general window of time. That's not one invention, that's convergence. Different groups of humans, likely with no contact with each other, separately deciding that this same strange, costly relationship with a dangerous predator was worth maintaining. Which suggests something uncomfortable. Whatever made this bond succeed wasn't a clever trick one group figured out and everyone else copied. It might be something closer to a shared instinct, something in how humans process attachment and loss that once triggered by proximity to these animals kept happening independently over and over across an entire continent. And once it did take hold, it spread fast and permanently. Every dog alive today, from a wolf-sized Malamute to a dog small enough to fit in a coat pocket, traces back through this exact chain of events. Not the Goyet lineage, not the Razbojnica lineage. Those are dead ends, evolutionary footnotes. Every living dog on Earth descends from whichever version of this bond finally survived hard enough and got protected hard enough to make it through.
Here's the part that should actually bother you a little. The wolves that became dogs weren't chosen because they were the strongest or the fastest or the best hunters. Based on everything the archaeological and genetic record shows, they succeeded because some human in a cave in the middle of an ice age looked at a dying, useless animal and decided it deserved 6 more weeks of care anyway. Scientists still debate the details. Some researchers argue domestication was driven more by wolves self-selecting toward human camps, scavenging scraps, tolerating people, gradually growing calmer over generations without any deliberate human choice involved at all. Others, especially in light of the Bonn-Oberkassel find, argue that emotional attachment, not utility, was the actual deciding factor in which relationships survived long enough to become permanent. The truth is probably some tangled combination of both, and we may never fully untangle it. But look at what's sitting near you right now, breathing, completely unaware of any of this. Every dog alive today exists because at some exact point in deep prehistory, a version of caring about something that gave nothing back finally won out over abandoning it. Twice, that instinct wasn't strong enough. The wolves died out, the bond broke, and history simply moved on without them. The third time, it held. And it's still holding 14,000 years later. Every single time you feed an animal that will never once help you hunt, never once guard anything, and never once pay you back in anything except being there. You're not just keeping a pet. You're the current custodian of the one version of this ancient relationship that happened to survive.